This is AP Macroeconomics, Unit 1, Part 1. The first graph I want to introduce you to is the production possibilities curve. So, I'm going to draw out. See, there's our quadrant 1. We're going to put a 0 there so that you are always certain that this is quadrant 1, because the 0 is going to be at this point right here for both axes. The production possibilities curve is going to come with a line that is going to be genuinely curved out and look like that. Except, of course, without anything in quadrant 2 or quadrant 4. So that is a production possibilities curve. Now, that probably doesn't mean anything to you at this point. So, we're going to give this a little bit of meaning. Let's say that a company produces cars and trucks. Okay? This curve represents the number of cars and number of trucks that the company can produce in any given combination. This point right here, and we're going to call it point A, represents the production of the company if they produce only cars and no tractors. Point B represents the company's production if they were only to produce trucks and therefore producing no cars. Now, I'm going to draw 2 points on the curve. They're going to be point C and point D. Both of those points show a point of allocative efficiency in which the company will produce a certain number of cars and a certain number of trucks. This shows so every point along this line here is a representation of a combination that the company can use in its production of cars and trucks. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to take these out for just a second to continue with a few more points that fall under the production possibilities curve that you will need to be aware of. I'm going to call this point E. Point E represents underemployment, whether it be underemployment of resources, underemployment of people. What it basically means is that their full potential is not being met with the current state of production which they are performing. Because as you can see, they are producing this many cars, this many trucks, when they could be producing a lot more with the materials or capabilities or finances that they have. It means that they are not being as productive or as efficient as they could be. The next and last point that I'm going to show you right now for the production possibilities curve is going to be out here, and it's going to be point F. Point F represents a goal, a potential, but current impossibility. So right now, point F cannot be achieved because they cannot produce this number of trucks and this amount of cars. They just don't have the resources or the employees to do that. Now, we're going to talk about some things that can make the production possibilities curve shift. I'm just going to erase this whole thing because there are points all over it. And let's go with a different example for this. Let's say newspapers and magazines. And we're going to pretend for this scenario that newspapers are all black and white. Now, let's say that the price of colored ink were to decrease, or that the government was to issue a subsidy to help with the price of colored ink, which is much more expensive than black ink is. If this company now has access to more colored ink, then with the resources that they have, being the number of printers, being the number of employees, they're going to be able to produce more magazines than they were before. But colored ink is not going to have any effect on their production of newspapers. So easier access to colored ink would cause the curve to shift from right here to right here. So our new curve would look like that, only increasing on the magazine side. Now, and by the way, in economics, and this is a general thing for the most part. If it's not, then I will be sure to indicate this. But an increase in a concept, principle, indicator on an economic graph is shown by an increase, well, a translation of the graph to the right. A decrease would be shown, obviously, in a shift to the left. Now, I'm just going to erase this whole thing and I'll put the one line back in, and we'll show something, and I'll show you what happens when both sides increase. So let's say this is newspapers and magazines. Right now they're doing this. They want to be doing this. Let's say that they, as a company, buy more printers. More printers is going to affect both magazines and newspapers in this scenario, and both are going to increase. So the curve will shift to the right, and this becomes the new curve, and point B has been achieved at this point. This is the production possibilities curve. This is the principles that you need to know right now for how this graph works. Now what I'm going to show you now is going to be how to draw it given any amount of data. We are going to say that, and pardon the sponsorship, but we're going to say that Ford can produce cars, trucks. Let's say that in 1 month they can produce 250 cars or 120 trucks. To draw this out, it is very simple. This is not complicated. What you're going to do is you're going to draw your first quadrant graph with cars and trucks. And you are going, and all you have to make sure is that you label this 250 and this 120. So really, if we wanted to make this look a little bit more accurate, because that doesn't look right, we would call this 250, and 125 and 120 would mainly be right here. So the curve would look more like this, which is a very straight curve, by the way. So your points would be there, 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 there. That is how you draw a production possibilities curve. Now please bear in mind that the production possibilities curve can only be used to compare two products of the same producer. Now, pull out your notebooks, and here's your assignment. What you see here for the first thing that I want you to do in your notebooks is you have point A, point B, point C, and point D. For number 1, I want you to write the letter of the point that displays underemployment. For number 2, I want you to write the letter of the point that displays allocative efficiency. The third one, I want you to write the letter of the point that describes a goal. And for the fourth, full production of one product. After you do that, I want you to create a production possibilities curve in which a movie company can produce 210 DVDs or 150 Blu-rays.